concept, platform, evaluation. And the machine, we don't necessarily feel it, but the connectedness of the machines, the machine power, the algorithms, they are changing a lot. So that, you know, my small phone has more computing power than the Apollo and whatever went to the moon at that time. So what it means, you know, this cliche, all those things, the largest taxi company doesn't have any taxi, the largest accommodation provider doesn't have any single hotel. So this platform economy everywhere. So as EMCC, where do we stand? As coaches, where do we stand? We don't know. We're going to look into that. Even if, you know, the large software vendors, Apple, Google, whatever, they don't write software. And the computing power is not just the machine power, the muscle, you know. We're talking about the genome project, the gene map of a person. 2001, it was $100 million here. Now it's 800. They just take a saliva here, $800 it counts. It doesn't just the power, it's also the algorithms. Maybe you know about this Go game. It took ages, 3 million game for the machine to learn first, to win the game. And the second algorithm they developed, it took only 40 days to do it, not 3 million games to play. So it's not just the machine power, muscle, but also the algorithms that change. So what does it all mean? And Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, said, okay, the news is that the change has never been so fast in history, but the news is it's not going to be so slow again any longer. So this is where we are, okay, this algorithm where we don't necessarily feel comfortable. And some people say there is this wave coming, we're going to go flooded, I don't know how to cope with it. So what does it mean? A couple of highlights, I'm not going to go into detail, but just food for thought, okay? That doesn't work any longer, you know. Carrot and stick, the way the incorporations has been designed, it doesn't work that way. What drives us is different today, isn't it? Multi-stakeholder network management. Nobody really reports to each other. All the matrix organization, you need to deliver what you want to deliver using other people's resources. How to motivate them? You can't really order. Even they kind of impact on their destiny. VUCA, I'm not going to go into detail, it's everywhere. We're talking about VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. And these are my professors from all time from Stanford. They used to be engineers, now they created DLAB into psychology. And they are talking about design thinking, how to prototype your life rather than asking people, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? So it's, you know, and they're talking about dysfunctional beliefs. They are talking about what's your passion is a dysfunctional belief, because their evidence shows 80% of their audience, they don't know their passion, or maybe they have more than one passion. And they say there's a dysfunctional belief to be late for something. They say people in the room, at least they will live until 90 years old, maybe more. The evidence shows, the science shows. So what are you late for, especially for young kids? They are late always for something, but are you? So they are talking about meaning-making rather than money-making. They are talking about wicked problems rather than the tamed problems like we learn in school. But human problems are wicked problems, because the moment you define the problem changes. You know, coaching-related things. Snack, you know, start with why. And this agile concept everywhere. Without becoming the company's agile friendly, we ask people to become agile. And shared purpose. It's very easy to say, how easy to reach. But you know, these are all the big topics, you know, if you feel lately. And inclusion. This is Spencer, are you in the room? This is his definition. I had the privilege to meet with the global HR head of LinkedIn last summer. And she explained to me, inclusion is not just human good things, but technology really forces us to be inclusive. Because between the good and not good enough, the difference increases thanks to technology. So we've got to be helping everybody feel good with what we offer. So this is the definition of Spencer about inclusion. And you maybe noticed this morning when I asked about inclusion, suddenly the topic changed to diversity. But we're talking about inclusion, you know. And this is the research that I'm going to stop, and we're going to go to the panel. This is an institute based in Palo Alto, University of Phoenix. They did a very comprehensive research about what are the tenets. We're talking about future, but what are the tenets that we require with this digital world? And these are the 10 skills for future. And the way they define future is 2020. So I'm not talking about 10 years' time. So it's on my web page as well, so you can find it there. So let me just read very quickly. I'm not going to go into detail. They say we need to increase our capacity in sense making. Lots of data everywhere about how to make sense. Social intelligence, because we know no single expert can solve the problems of today. And another aspect of this, maybe you notice most of the more than $1 billion box office Hollywood movies, they are always successful in China. And the rise of Eastern concept, maybe we used to have Superman, now they're all a gang of heroes together. Harry Potter is never alone. Guardians of the Galaxy, they are not alone. So bad guy is not alone. So it's always collaboration, you're talking about. Maybe these are already novel and adaptive thinking, what's right becomes suddenly wrong, wrong becomes right. Cross-cultural competency, that doesn't mean cross countries or cross religions or beliefs or whatever. I'm talking about between neighbors. We all have our own way of life, our own culture, and how sensitive and adaptive we are to other cultures. Computational thinking, new media literacy, transdisciplinary, everything's transdisciplinary today. Design mindset, I just mentioned. Cognitive load management, this is interesting. Maybe it requires a bit explanation. They did an experiment, for example. The traders, lots of data, and they make some decisions. Suddenly they decide to buy or sell, and it turned out to be great, okay? And they asked the traders how they make this decision. No proper answer. So what they do, they put sensors on the body. They got the data about the body heat, the respiration, whatever, all those things, and they see when, what changes, and good decisions are made. So once the algorithm is there, there's no need for a trader. This is the cognitive load management. So basically you make sense with lots of data using different sensory equipments and virtual collaboration. So this semester I teach at a university in Turkey about digital transformation and leadership. So these are the areas where we work with my students, and I don't know still answer, how to increase our capacity. How can we be better with those areas? It's still a research going on, but these are the areas they say where people should possess some skills. And as Rumi says, this is the very last part of my introduction, his saying goes like this: why in the abundance of universe do you choose to put yourself in a prison? The translation in English, either or. Whenever you hear either or, it's a excellent coaching starter. There's always a third way. There's always other alternatives. So here we are today with our panelists, with you, with all the answers you give to Slido. We're going to look what other alternatives are possible for us when it comes to digital and coaching. For this panel, let me just add one more last thing. I also contacted WISA. How many of you know WISA? W-Y-S-A. Yes, it's an app. It's a coaching app, a chatbot. 400,000 people downloaded already. And it works. I don't know what it means to us here in this room. And I contacted the owner, the creator, the lady. He replied me. So we're in dialogue. I don't know what this dialogue will bring us. But basically, she couldn't make it here. She's in the US now. She's originally from India or whatever. But there are apps who are actively doing coaching, and they claim to be good. So, it's not an isolated world we live in. Our clients are facing all those issues, so what? So these are the questions that came with my panelists, and these are the questions basically we translated in Slido. And here we go. Let me first invite Tunde on stage. And I will also, I think Sarah is on the phone already with us. So let's start the panel. Is it okay? Perfect. Let's keep that for Sarah. All right, okay. Okay. But this is the mic. Where is the mic for you? Could we have the mic here, microphone? It's coming. I hear this because I will be communicating with Sarah through WhatsApp. You see, we're trying everything. We're talking about digital here. Doing our best. All right. So, first, let's get to know you a little bit, and I will ask the same to Sarah as well. And then I'd like to get your input on the topic.
Okay. So, my name is Tunde Erdős. I'm from Austria. And some of you will know me already because you are participating in my coaching presence research project. And I am a full-time executive coach and currently doing my PhD with the VU, the Free University in Amsterdam, in collaboration also with Ashridge Business School and Case Western Reserve University in the United States. And we are looking into actually somatics, so this is okay. So into somatics, actually the non-verbals in coaching and what their impact is on clients feeling safe, their psychological safety and self-regulatory capacities. And we are using technology in this project, which I'm aware that is quite disrupting a lot of coaches' a normal way of coaching. So they are the project is very demanding, and I'm very, very happy. And I want you to know, guys, that those who participate in this, that I really truly respect you because I think we are going to find nice data, which I'm already in the phase of collecting, and it looks good. And you are doing a fabulous job by allowing yourself to be disrupted by technology and in service of our clients. So that's about
Okay, let's also hear Sarah. Sarah, could we hear you?
Yeah, marvellous, thank you. So I'm Sarah McCarthy, and I'm a business psychologist, actually from the UK, as you might detect from my accent. Although, as Rita said, we are pushing the bounds of digital technology today because I'm away on holiday in Australia but couldn't resist the chance to be able to join you all virtually. So I am an executive coach also. I run a team in PwC where I've been for the last 13 years, but I've really spent the last 3 years of my work driving a body that's around the future of coaching, which I'm immensely passionate about. I see a lot of organisations focusing on what they will change in the future, but less about how we help people to get there. And I believe as coaches that we can really play a vital role in that.
So tell us a bit more about what do we need to change? So, and why do we need to change as coaches, coaching profession? So what's going on in the digital world?
Yes, certainly. Well, as Tunde indicated, whether we like it or not, there's disruptors that are influencing us as coaches. And so I think that we can either be bystanders to that, or we can get involved in really shaping the future of our profession.
Okay, but is there anything that's stopping us doing that?
Yeah, certainly. One of the things that I see from the coaches that are around me would be that sometimes people have a very fixed idea about how coaching should be delivered. So in the past, we might see that coaching would generally be rolled out to more senior individuals, and it would be a step model. Many of you will operate perhaps maybe a sequence of 6 coaching involving a sponsor. We look at some of the future trends of work, which many of you will be aware of. as we've got a generation that are entering the workforce that need us to be much more flexible, it will mean that we'll need to be coaching more at various times in different locations, but also that model will need to adapt and change as we have more contingent workers entering the workforce too. We're going to have to get to a stage where coaches will need to be more adaptable in their model of coaching, so we might have to have short, sharp interventions. And using some of the technology, you talked there, Rita, about WYSA as a tool, which I think can be immensely powerful for using technology to really enhance what we deliver.
All right, thank you. So I will kind of keep you on hold and continue with our discussions here. Tunde, so what's your take with technology and coaching?
Technology and coaching, so my take is that there is some ambiguity, and I can see that also in my practice, that clients are grappling with this ambiguity. On one hand, we know we need technology. I mean, we are creating technology. Technology doesn't just emerge, like it's human beings who make technology and create and produce. So on one hand, I don't see us as victims. I do see us as self-responsible, and the late John Whitmore actually, like some 10 years ago, was saying, back then he was already saying, hey guys, how are we taking self-responsibility for what we are actually creating? So when I'm sitting here and I was actually trying to get prepared for our panel discussion today, I was remembering what he was saying, like to what extent do we not call it like digital age or so, but that we call it like, oh, how do we work with this ambiguity? On one hand, like we need technology, we are creating it. On the other hand, like how to also stay human and also help the clients to work with this disruption of, okay, I cannot be who I used to be, and how to also create the leaders, these agile leaders of the future who can then work with the technology further on. Because I see a gap between leadership needs on one hand, so that people like we need to lead, but on the other hand, I see that we are not educating the leaders of the future who can then cope with this future work. And so it's this discrepancy. That's why I call it like disruption as well, and it's also convenience, because we are using technology like conveniently. Like when I look into the round, like how many people just open their iPhones, for sure. And why not? Because it's there, it's convenient, we look up something, we work with it, but it's taking away our attention and focus from our purpose here maybe, which is also what happens in the coaching sessions. Like the leaders or the people I work with, they have lost touch with themselves. Like, what is my purpose here? How do I really need to, what's my goal really? Because they get in their convenience of using technology, they lose this focus. So this is my take on that.
Thank you. I'd like to invite a few people to make more comments. I don't see now here, but Nigel, are you in the room?
Yeah.
All right. Would you like to add? Because Nigel led our ethics team first, now he's introducing himself.
Hi, I'm Nigel Cumlin. So for 5 years I've been heading the ethics work group of the MCC, and quite often I've been asked to explore companies or organisations to see who want to partner with us. So let me share a couple of examples which just come to mind. There's a European firm in our coaching space, some of you may know it, I won't name it, and what they're doing is quite amazing, but there are also questions. So they're actually recording the coaching sessions. They're working with some of the large banks, and they have the agreement with the clients, the banks, that the coaching sessions will be recorded. Then what happens after 30 or 40 coaching sessions across the bank? Software and algorithms have amalgamated the coaching conversations to read the emotions and mood of the managers being coached, so that the client, the bank, can be given a sense of the leadership culture or something like that. Sounds exciting, no? It came across the desk of our work group about a year and a half ago, just to kind of explore with them the ethical implications. Not just of them holding the data, them recording of the sessions, because there you have assuredness of confidentiality, secure servers. But the questions raised by the anonymous amalgamating of confidential coaching conversations using what I think are amazing algorithms, when you think about it, because they're taking keywords and the tone of voice being spoken. There was another case as well, a smaller case, and then I'll stop, of a company exploring software where using a sort of personality assessment, which we're all very familiar with, assessing the coaches and assessing the leaders and combining them together based on personality. Theory being no need for chemistry meetings. But you think about it, it's like Facebook. You go to Facebook and you start seeing things you like. You give them things you like, you know. And so what are the implications? So I'm seeing technology being amazing, as well as it raises questions which we haven't quite asked yet. Would you like Angela to also share? Is my hand over?
Thank you. Is it okay that we add on some ideas like this? Because there was another panelist who had to drop out, unfortunately, from logistical reasons, just now. He's not a coach, he's an artificial intelligence expert. We invited him also to speak, but he couldn't make it. But he said a few notes. He said, if there are things, they are not routine, and they require on-the-spot creativity, he says, don't be afraid of artificial intelligence. But he says, if coaches, they notice how often they ask the same questions in the same client situations, then technology can quickly replace them, he says. On the other hand, he says, the coaches also should look into their life and practice which tasks are boring. If they find some tasks are boring and painful, he says, why do they miss the opportunity to get them automated? And client perspective, which tasks are important to be delivered by a human coach versus by a digital coach? And he says he would be more than happy to get to know coaching world much more, to understand what's possible in our practice. One more invitation. Angela, from the ethics perspective, how do we see as EMCC? You can also come on stage, feel free. So.
I'll just cozy here. Tundra and I are quite close as part of her research, but we don't get physically close, do we? Okay, so my name's Angela Hill, and I work as a professional coach and a coach supervisor, or head of supervision for an organisation called the OCM. And I have been involved with the EMCC for quite a number of years as a volunteer, and very recently I was asked to get involved in ethics, which I was very happy to do, and to follow in the footsteps of Nigel, who's just spoken to you. So I have been just put on the spot a little bit to talk to you about this particular topic. Like Nigel, I think when I think about technology, I am the very fortunate person who have had a new grandson quite recently, and he wouldn't be here without the advances of science and technology, because he's an IVF baby. And so, as an example, I just think, how brilliant is that?
How wonderful, what a gift to humanity. At the same time, when I think about the EMCC Global Code of Ethics, next year we will be looking to review that and to consider, is it meeting its purpose for the future, for the now, because I do think the future is here with us now. But also I think well, okay, well, it's not been out that long in version 2, but we have really gone into a very different landscape now, I feel. We're all a lot wiser post-2016 about how technology is being used by some people to their own advantage. Yeah, great things can be done with technology and to support, you know, the business proposition of more with less, taking away very routine, habitual activities, etc., etc. And probably that's the same in coaching, if we think about it. We're honest about how we get on autopilot. That's something that I feel supervision can disrupt quite a lot, and to the benefit of the client and also to the coach or the mentor. But I think rather than more with less, it's become more for me as in the 2%. So in terms of humanity, I feel that our thinking around technology, we really do need to think about the intention. I'm reminded of, as an example, you know the crash test dummy that they used for measuring impact in car accidents, which has been around for years. You know, we've all seen the videos of how they used those. But just recently, the statistics about who is most injured in a car accident has highlighted that females are more likely to be injured more seriously or killed. And why is that? Because the crash test dummy that they used was a physical shape that was more akin to being male than female. So the design of the car was actually around that. And that wasn't an intentional thing, but it's been discovered later on. And I think our challenge as coaches and mentors and supervisors is to really think forward and understand, yes, what are the advantages of technology, but also what might be the unintended consequences, and to start to work as humanity across all countries to protect ourselves as humans. And that's really what I'll be wanting to do when we start to review, with all of your input, and people obviously not here as well, what we really think is important to have in our global code of ethics. So my final thought to share with you is, just because we can do something doesn't mean we should.
Wow. Thank you. In the meantime, I have Sarah, who is willing to add something. I could also have the questions here, the other slides, you know, the picture. Sarah, do you have a point?
Yeah, thanks, Rita. I was just going to add that PwC, our coaching team, did exactly that in terms of looking at what were the repeatable tasks that actually the team didn't feel what had added value in terms of the coaching experience. You know, we're all experienced with people that we did the need to be carrying out. So we actually introduced a robot into our team, and we've given a name to, and that robot currently carries out what we like to describe as triage. So effectively, it would be the first interaction that anybody would have with our coaching team would actually be a robot. And that would help them to be able to push forward different content that might be used or to decide whether or not a coach might be really involved.
Okay, but I need her to hear me. First of all, I like the other slides, not that one, the original slides. Yeah, please do so, because it's useless. We can't really benefit from her. I will just say. In the meantime, I will go back to your comments, but I would also like to invite Liz. Liz, are you here? Liz Lewis. Yeah, would you like to also make some comments if you're working on the subject? Would you like to come here? Yep.
You were good. Hi everyone. So, isn't it exciting, artificial intelligence? So I'm really enjoying listening to all the different comments about it and thinking, yeah, we've got to think of the ethics part. We've got to think of regulation. It's currently unregulated. So we've got to be mindful of the impact. But I'm also hearing woven into this all the exciting things that we can do with it. I like the idea that the apps actually work, because the ones that came out originally, they were fine if you did the same exercise every day by rote. Otherwise you failed over the week. If you didn't do it on the right day at the right time, you failed. So that wasn't really very helpful, was it, from a coaching perspective? So it's good that we're moving on, and I think that in itself is a little bit scary because it's so fast moving. There's so much more that we can do day by day through using machine and artificial intelligence. And of course, good old Sophie, the humanoid robot, she can chat with us. But you know, we also find that there's some kind of dilemmas with it, not just the ethical and the regulation side, but the actual function of them. So you must have also had fun conversations with Siri. It all starts off really well, doesn't it? And then all of a sudden it all crashes. Well, the same thing happens with the humanoid robots. You know, when you start to get complexity into it, it's okay when you kind of keep a high-level conversation. But when you get into the complexity that the human brain can manage pretty easily, we're not at that stage yet with artificial intelligence, but it will come. So it's something about also getting excited. Yeah, take it for what it is, use it where it works. We were just hearing about PwC using it, you know, for the routine tasks. It's great for that. Let's embrace that and enjoy it. But also think about, what does it mean for us? And it's not just us as coaches, it's also for our clients, and also for supervisors to think about what's the knock-on for coaches. Yeah, if you have a routine approach to coaching, you can easily be replaced if you're using the same questions. We've just heard that from Risa. So be mindful of where your practice is coming from. Be aware that it's here to stay. It's moving on really quickly, but don't be too frightened of it. Really enjoy it, you know, and say, how can it enhance my life? How can it enhance my work? How can it make a difference to what I do? And go for it, you know, have fun. Don't be scared. It doesn't matter if you push too many buttons, you know, you're not going to kill anyone. Well, unless it's the button, of course, but then we're not talking about that one. So yeah, you know, go for it, enjoy it.
Great.
Okay.
And I think Sarah is back, PwC. Can you try again?
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. And really enjoyed what you were saying there, actually. One of the things that I found in some of the research that I've been doing around what's out in the market as well, is that where there is some fear in coaches are thinking, gosh, how is this going to impact us? Technologists are moving into our space. So there's lots of technologists saying, you know what, they're quite happy to go, they see a real opportunity here. And so I'd absolutely agree with the lady that was just speaking there, that if we don't get involved in this, other people are going to move on. Not to tell you, I think we have great skills and expertise to be able to bring to what this could look like for the future.
Thank you, you're right. In fact, at the MCC, we receive from time to time, quite often, offers from technology providers. And so far, we haven't really found out the best way to approach or to a collaboration with them. But we're in the process of thinking what will be the best way. Because Sarah is right, if you don't disrupt, you're disrupted. So we should take an active stance. Here we go, now we have some audience willing to join.
Thanks. I think that's a really good point, actually, that we do need to think about how we work in partnership with the technology providers. And we can do that as coaching professionals, or we can do it from inside organisations, from learning and HR functions as well. A couple of points. One, I'll set a bit of context. I had a conversation with HR for IBM about nearly a year ago now, and they absolutely see the HR and people market as the primary place in which they're going to invest and seize market share. over the next 5 years. It's a really ripe market, our market, so we need to be aware of that. Second, you've got lots of startups who are doing some really interesting stuff. And what we've established through the Future of Coaching collaboration is a round table. We had the first round table in December last year, where we sat down with some of the providers and said, look, I don't know where you're getting your sense of what coaching is about from, but maybe we should start talking together and thinking about how we create the right kind of collaboration across our industries so that we are operating in a more ethical way. We're actually thinking about what's the ethical code for us, what's the ethical code that they want to work with as they engage with HR and people, communities in general, actually, not just us as coaches, but in the wider sense. So there's some initiatives underway that are really supporting this kind of very emergent area of practice. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Actually, let's have a look to this computer, then the mic could move there. If I get some help with mic, somebody, or you're sorting it out. Could we go back to this computer? Let's have a look how we perceive digital in the room. About 100 people joined. There are more, and feel free, it's open until tomorrow, so you can add your opinion to this Slido. Well, you're right, it's not too bad, so it's evolving, interesting, exciting, accessible, accelerated. Yeah, these are tools. Yeah, I don't see many negative comments here, so yeah, which word do you use to describe coaching in the digital age? Pretty positive we are in that room. That's a very good start. Yeah, before I go to the other questions, a comment from there.
All right, good afternoon. I say this as an American who is still smarting from what happened in 2016 for the use of technology in the larger country. I think there really are at least two parallel conversations going on here where we talk about coaching in the digital age. One is how to leverage the technology available to us to serve our clients, to facilitate client outcomes that are absolutely critical. And we've got methods and means of verification and validation for those client outcomes available to us now that have never been available before. And it's worth paying attention to how does this technology serve the outcomes our clients are pursuing. Simultaneously, I think we've also got a technological conversation circling around us about how do we become more effective as coaches. I think there's coach development opportunities that technology will accelerate. There's support for connection and relationship between coach and client that technology can accelerate. But that's a very different conversation than delivering outcomes for our clients. So I'd love to hear some comments, and I appreciate the opportunity to contribute.
Thank you very much. May I have the other mic? So you can give the mic to David over there. So, but before we go to David, there is another.
Yeah, this is more a question for the panel or the group. I would have thought that technology would be incredibly helpful in terms of serving our clients and their outcomes from embedding changes in mindset and behaviors. And so I would love to hear from the group or the panel if they've come across new technologies on that front that the coach can use with their client toward that end.
Do we have any technology provider in the room? Any company who is, do I see the hand? I'm so sorry, why do I look only here? Would you like to comment? So maybe a mic before I go back to David. So,
may I have a question again?
Any technology that's useful for us, available for us to the service of the client's experience?
We're doing a digital coaching work where people are going through exercises on a platform, picking and choosing photos, trump cards and everything, and then answering certain questions. And that one, if there were any people in the group, in the session we had in terms of written coaching, that somehow works like that, that helps us as coaches when we're starting the conversation. We just know where the people are. And they go through the platform, they get acquainted to the coaching. That's a very important thing, especially for mentors and internal managers trying to coach their people. But also for professional coaches, then we get a easier access to the conversation, and people get, we get much more easily build a report, and then we can discuss all about that. And they have the potential to understand, especially for technical guys who think it's just talk, trying to understand, oh, this is how really coaching works. So it also eases the conversation like that. So I personally believe this is it won't, my personal experiences, like you're saying, if we're talking about coaching, the creativity spark into it, that will never be replaced by a digital tool. But what would change basically is all those repetitive things can easily be on a platform, and we don't need to spend time with them. Then we can spend much more time coaching more people. At the moment, we're just coaching because we need, a few, maybe minimum 6 sessions, maybe with someone. Then it's a huge budget for organizations. We just go and coach only the top management. Then we can bring coaching to more people. More people can benefit from that. So it will, I believe, not take the work out of our hands, but on the contrary, it will make a bigger cake for all of us, and we're going to bring coaching to more people. So that's, I believe, how coaching, the technology will help us throughout this process. I don't know if that's somehow works for you.
David? And the mic can go to the lady in the back. But David first, yeah.
Okay, what would you like me to say?
I don't know, just we have questions, the topic, anything you would like to add.
I've been looking at this subject for the past 2 years now. I've been waiting for 12 months for a project to happen, and I'm beginning to think it's never going to happen, which would be, takes 3 groups of teams, one of which would get no intervention, or one group of 2 would have no intervention. One group of teams would just get a coach bot, and the other group of teams would have a coach bot plus me. And to see which of them actually improves the most. I'm looking forward, if it ever happens, I should be really pleased to do it. Of course, there's always the trepidation, what if my group doesn't come out top? Which will be quite fascinating, but a great learning experience. I think we have to distinguish between coach bots, which are clunky and simply follow a very simple set of algorithms to help to lead you to a conclusion or to make a decision. And genuine artificial intelligence, which is much more situationally based. Coaches who operate at a role model type level, where they're following a formula, that most of what they do right now can be done better by the more advanced coach bots combined with a simple AI. Where AI where we're going in the future, however, is that we have to look at what people can do that the coach bot cannot. And that comes down in some ways to the use of wisdom. So we can define 3 kinds of wisdom. There's skinny wisdom, which is wisdom related to a particular area of domain of expertise or knowledge, like being the world's greatest expert on transfer tax in Venezuela. So if you want to be coached in that area, a bot can do it very nicely for you if somebody's captured that knowledge. If you just want to make some decisions about career choices, a coach bot can do that quite nicely. The second kind of wisdom is broad wisdom. And that broad wisdom comes from your reflection on your own life and your vicarious reflections on your reflections on vicarious other lives and other people's. So it's a sense of being human and what it means to be able to make those judgments. And then the third kind of wisdom is meta-wisdom. And that's being able to put together all sorts of knowledge and expertise and wisdom from multiple sources and to integrate them to be coming up with constantly new things. There is no immediate prospect of AI replacing us in the last 2. There's every prospect of it doing things better. And in fact, in some experiments with psychotherapy by robots, indicate that people prefer, the patients prefer the robot because it's less judgmental. Which is, I think, a really interesting conclusion. What I think is fascinating is to try and draw up scenarios of how will we work with a bot, with the technology. And fascinating scenario we drew up for looking at supervision recently. Here's the client. They have their own little coach bot that helps them with all sorts of think things through. They bring it with them, so that the clients have used that in their discussions with their coach. The coach also has a coach bot to help them, or has an AI to help them. And the coach's AI might remind them of, when you use that language, or when the client's using that language, what does it mean in their context, in the country that they come from, for example? If the coach mentions a particular type of a particular model, for example, talks about Cartman's drama triangle. There it is, suddenly on the screen in front of you, just so you can show it to the client and talk them through it in a more effective way. The coach bot will say, or the AI will say, isn't it interesting that this client has used that particular phrase 4 or 5 times in the last 10 minutes? Have you noticed that? Yeah. Or it might say, have you noticed how the client's body language is changing? All of this we can do right now to a certain extent. But then if the coach then comes along to supervision, bringing their AI with them, and the supervisor has got their AI with them, you now have a wonderful conversation where the coach and the supervisor are talking to each other, and the two AIs are talking to each other as well. So you've now got this 4-way conversation with massive information going on. And the greatest challenge for us as coaches and supervisors is going to be, how the hell do we cope with all that information and sort it out so we're not overwhelmed? Because the biggest danger is that if we become too reliant on the technology, we become the robots.
Thank you.
Okay, I would like to rebound on that and also to answer the question, what would change mean for us as coaches? I am lucky enough to be part of the ethics group that has been mentioned already. I'm the lady in red, Dominique, pleased to see you, Angela, because we were supposed to meet, so I've met you now. I wanted to go in that direction, what would change mean for us? The first thing I think would be to have a clear definition of what we are talking about. What is it, artificial intelligence? There are so many different levels of artificial intelligence that would be a good idea to have a clear definition of it.